But some people think, well, because I don't feel that way anymore, therefore I don't love them, so therefore they're gone. And friend, that's false, and it's wrong. You see, love is a choice. Well, the third ingredient that I would like to put into our mixing bowl, we're mixing a concoction together that will result in a happy marriage. We have looked at God, we have looked at obedience, and the third ingredient would be that of love. Now, we have mentioned that briefly before, but a loveless marriage is certainly an unhappy marriage. Marriage should be really all about love. And as we have seen here this morning in Colossians chapter 3, husbands are to love their wives. In Titus chapter 2, wives are to love their husbands. Now, I want us to go over to the love chapter. What chapter would that be? 1 Corinthians 13, of course. So let's turn over to 1 Corinthians chapter 13 for just a moment. And notice some of the aspects that the Bible teaches us concerning the subject of love. And in verses 1 through 3, we have the importance of love. Love is very important. In fact, it's really all important. There's all kinds of things you can do, all kinds of things you can have, but if you don't have love, the Bible says you don't have anything. That's important. And then from verse 4 to verse number 7, we have the description of love. What really is love? What does it look like? And then verse 8 through the end of the chapter is the permanence of love. You know, it's interesting in verse 13, it says, now abideth faith, hope, charity, but these three, but the greatest of these is charity. Well, faith's important, but you know that faith is temporary. Because right now we walk by faith, but then one day we'll see the Lord. You won't need any faith. It'll be sight then. So faith is a temporary thing. Hope is an expectation of something wonderful that is yet to take place. But once that wonderful thing happens, you don't have hope anymore because your hope has been realized. But you know there will never be a time when you don't need love. Yeah. Love will be here a million years from now. And so the reason that charity is the greatest is because it's eternal. And that's the importance of it and the permanence of it. Now, you notice in verse 1, he says, though I speak. Now, we could get into the whole religious aspect of this, if you will. Paul was dealing with problems with people misusing the gift of tongues. And it's, by the way, he's not saying, in verse 1 he says, though I speak with the tongues of men and of angels. He's not saying that he does speak with the tongues of angels. In fact, in the Bible, all tongues or glossia are known languages, unknown to the people who were speaking them, which meant it was a miracle. But the reason he mentions angels, it's a hyperbole. For example, in verse 2, he says, though I have the gift of prophecy and understand all mysteries. Did Paul understand all mysteries? No. So it's hyperbole. He says, if I speak with the tongues of men and even the angels, but I don't have charity, don't have love, then it's not important, you see. Though I have all of these things. When we think of marriage, we could say this, though I speak and have not charity. You know, the husband may have all the right words and he has all the right arguments and all the right explanations and all the right answers. And he may think of himself clever that he can kind of talk his wife out of things, or when she's really feeling some real issues, but the husband just glosses over it. And he has a great gift of speaking and arguing. And she comes away from that thinking, well, he won the argument again. But though I speak, you can speak, but if you don't have love, your marriage is not going to go anywhere. Though I speak and have not charity, if you don't love your wife, if you don't love your husband. Then in verse 2 he says, though I have the gift of prophecy and so on. But think of it in the marriage relationship. Though I have, she might have great abilities. The wife might be a great cook. She may have great beauty. But if she doesn't love him, she may have all these things. Though I have and have not charity, he says, I'm nothing. You may have all kinds of abilities and all kinds of gifts and wonderful things, and you may think you're the best thing since sliced bread. But friend, if love is missing in that relationship, there's something very wrong. Because the marriage relationship is based on love. It's permeated with love. And then he says in verse number 3, though I give. Though I bestow all my goods to feed the poor, and though I give my body to be burned and have not charity, it profiteth me nothing. That's an amazing statement. But you know, people have went to the stake and given their lives, but they didn't have love in their hearts. And God says, it profits you nothing. And so a man may give to his wife all kinds of things. He can provide every material need. He can provide everything she needs, a beautiful new car, a Mercedes-Benz, a big house. But if he does not love that woman, then she will be unfulfilled. Where is the heart? Where is the affection? Where is the companionship? Where is the love? It's like the wife said to her husband one day, she says, you know, you never bring me flowers anymore. He kind of took the hump a little bit, and he went out and he bought a big beautiful bouquet of flowers, and he came into the kitchen. She's standing at the kitchen at the sink, and he came in and he took the flowers and he banged them down on the table. He said, "There's your flowers." You think she was impressed with that? See, it's not what you give. It's not the things, you see. She doesn't want the flowers. She wants your heart. Someone once said, a daisy plucked from the garden with love is better than a dozen roses without love. Now, love must be expressed. He tells us that in the next few verses. Charity suffereth long, is kind. You know, love is kind. By the word charity here is agape. That's that sacrificial love. It wants not itself. It's not proud. It's not puffed up. Does not behave itself unseemly, seeketh not her own. It's not selfish. Love's not selfish. Is not easily provoked. It doesn't have a short temper. Thinks no evil. Rejoices not in iniquity, but rejoices in the truth. Bears all things, believes all things, hopeth all things, endureth all things. You see, true love has action behind it. True love is expressed. And we should show love to one another in our marriages. I just love this story. I want you to turn back to Genesis chapter 26. And, you know, often we talk about, I think it was Wednesday night, we talked about Genesis 22 and the story about Abraham and Isaac, the father sacrificing his son. And, of course, it's a picture, a painting of the Father and Jesus. And then after the sacrifice, or the supposed sacrifice of Isaac, Isaac goes missing from the story, and all through the end of chapter 22 he's gone. Chapter 23, when his mummy dies, he's not mentioned. Chapter 24, when Abraham sends out a servant to get a bride for Isaac, and he meets Rebekah, and he brings Rebekah back to Isaac. You do not see Isaac from the time of his sacrifice until the time of his wedding, because Isaac is a type of Christ. But when Rebekah comes and they get married, he takes her back to the father's house, by the way. There's all kinds of pictures there. But and he married Rebekah, and they lived happily, you know. Isaac was not disappointed in Rebekah, and Rebekah was not disappointed in Isaac. And in Genesis 26, I want you to notice down in verse number 8, please, if you would. Genesis chapter 26. Now, this is when they went. There was a famine. They went down to the Philistines. In verse number 8, it says, "And it came to pass, when he had been there a long time, that Abimelech, king of the Philistines, looked out at his window." Now, the thing was, you see, you know, sin almost passes on from one generation to the next. And Abraham said to the Pharaoh, "Sarah is not my wife, she is my sister." In fact, he probably didn't say outwardly, "She's not my wife." He just said, "She is my sister," which was half true, because she was the daughter of his father, but not of his mother. But, you know, half-truth's a lie, right? And that got Abraham in trouble. And here's his son Isaac doing the same thing. And obviously Rebekah was pretty, and he didn't want to have, you know, somebody take a shine to her and then kill him so that they could have Rebekah. So he said to Abimelech, "She's my sister," did the same thing as Daddy did. And so this was a ruse, this was a lie. But he got found out here, because old king of the Philistines, Abimelech, was looking out of his window here, and in verse 8, the last part, "And he saw, and behold, Isaac was sporting with Rebekah his wife. And Abimelech called Isaac and said, Behold, of a surety she is thy wife. And how sayest thou, she is my sister? And Isaac said unto him, Because I said, lest I die for her." Now, how did Abimelech know that she was not his sister but his wife? Because the Bible says he was sporting with her. Now, by the way, he's 75 years old now. And he's still sporting with his wife. Now, the word sporting there, if you look it up in the Hebrew, it means to laugh, it means to mock, it means to play. He's looking out of his window, and there's old Isaac with his, and his, he probably didn't have a walking stick, but he's 75 years old, and he's chasing Rebecca around the garden. That's what they were doing, He's chasing her around the garden. She's on one side of the tree, he's on the other side, and he's reaching around there and he's tickling her. By the way, there's a sporting that belongs to the man and the wife. Don't be trying to tickle my wife. You'll get one of those, right? Because she's my wife. I'm the only person that sports with Leslie, right? Okay. But the thing was, Abimelech knew immediately when he saw this taking place, that's not it. Brothers and sisters don't do that kind of stuff. That's his wife. He was sporting with her. You see, Isaac was showing love to Rebekah. Even at 75, they weren't disappointed with one another. They were playing together. Maybe I don't know what he was doing, but he was tickling her, and he was making her laugh. They were both laughing, running around the garden. I think that's a wonderful story. And it's something that should be true in your life and mine. That in our loving relationship with our spouse, that it should be playful. It should be happy. There should be laughter in your house. One of the reasons I love Les, and forgive me for using us as an illustration of these, I can't help it. But one of the things that attracted me to Leslie when we first started dating was her sense of humor. And if you know Leslie, she has a very keen sense, very dry sense of humor. But there's many times in our house or driving in the car, and both of us, I'm driving, and she's bent over double laughing, and we just have a great time. Marriage is supposed to be like that. There should be a time of play and of laughter. And what are you doing? You're expressing your love to that person. There must be love. Now, what do you do as a pastor and people come to me and they say, well, we just don't love each other anymore? As soon as I hear that, I know what's going on. They're not actually talking about love. They're talking about the romance. They're talking about the phileo, the affection, and really the expressions of true love. You see, love, although it can be emotion, there is that kind of love that is emotional, and love should be emotional, but the primary word for love is agape, which is a decision. It's a choice that you make. It's about treating the person right, no matter how you feel about that. And so what they're expressing is they're expressing a lack of warmth and affection, and they can remember the romance of days gone by, and they haven't experienced that now. And so sometimes that emotion of love and affection can be replaced actually with anger and frustration and even hate. Doesn't it amaze you, like people, and you know people, you're probably thinking of people right now, when they first got married and they're all lovey-dovey, and years go by, and they fall out with one another, and they end up, before they get divorced, they are absolutely hating one another. And where there was great love, now there's great hate. And you say, how did they get from here to here? It's important that we understand what happens there. But of course, what happens is the emotion goes. Well, let me tell you something. The emotion will go for every couple. That romance, and we talked about this last week, where your pupils popping and dilating because of that first flush of love and romance. I mean, there's nobody that keeps that up through your whole marriage. That kind of thing. I have to say that it gets better and it gets deeper than that. But some people think, well, because I don't feel that way anymore, therefore I don't love them, so therefore they're gone. And friend, that's false, and it's wrong. You see, love is a choice. And really, when I talk to a couple like that, maybe they're actually reaping what they have been sowing, because when you sow a lack of empathy and sympathy and love and affection to a person, you're not. You see, the Bible says we reap what we sow. And honestly, if we sow love and affection in the other person's life, it's going to be really hard for them not to love you back. The Bible says we love Him because He first loved us. Love is reciprocal. Why do you love your parents? You didn't wake up one day and say, well, I think I'll just love these people that live in my house. It was automatic. Do you know why? Because they loved you before you knew what anything was. Your parents loved you, and you can't help it. You love them back. And if there's, God help the soul that maybe they didn't grow up in a right kind of home, and they didn't really love their parents because they never were loved. They don't know what love is. That's not the way it's supposed to be. But what I'm saying is, if you will on purpose choose to love your wife, if you on purpose choose to love your husband, no matter what the emotion is, you keep sowing that and sowing that and sowing it, and before long, you'll find out that the affection is back again.